If somebody tell me that I talk white one more time, I'm gonna turn into red beaming fire and just burn this whole bitch down. I'm sorry to tell you, but I'm tired of that. Hi guys, this is Carmen with Falling Forward. We got some doctors here today. We got we got an old doctor that's been here, and we kind of tired of her, so we had to get another new doctor, Xeturah, because the Xeturah probably might have better insight than the one that we've been stuck with the whole time. And that's Dr. Ross, and this is Dr. Xeturah Woodley.
Dr. Xeturah Woodley up in the house.
Yep.
So we ended up meeting Dr. Woodley through a class that we took with her. It was something in pop culture.
Pop culture.
Oh man,
pop
that class was amazing. I know what you shocked me, and this is one thing I really remember about that class, is the female and the male parts are shown in advertisements, in our tools, and everything we do.
Yes.
There's a female and male part to it, in and out, open in. So I'd never thought about that. I thought that was very interesting. You remember what I'm talking about, Christine?
Listen, girl, everything before COVID it's a chance I might remember it. And that was so far before COVID. Like I think all those memories are lost.
And those were the
I do
non-doctor
remember the
days.
class. Yeah, those were the non-doctor
So
days.
let me catch you guys up. I wasn't a doctor at that point either. I was teaching one of the first classes I've ever taught at a community college. Prior to starting to work at the community college where they took a class with me, I was a full-time visiting assistant professor at a college in Colorado. Well, then I moved down to New Mexico, and my mom was attending a community college, and she said, why don't you come and teach at I was like, community college? Okay. And I taught a pop culture class, and that class is one of the first classes I taught at the community college. And Carmen and Christine were in my class. They were two sisters that were coming and being in my class.
And this is the first class me and Carmen have ever taken together.
I think we took more than one class with you.
I think so.
Yes, and so we really enjoyed. She's a wonderful teacher.
Thanks.
And then we develop a relationship.
Yes.
You hung out with Mary Kay.
Yes.
I remember those Mary Kay things at the hotel and all these pink, and I hate pink. I was like, these people getting on my nerves wearing pink.
And mind you, I mean, this is well over 10 years ago.
Well,
this
is
well
like
over
15,
So
15,
it's
20
been
years.
20 years.
Oh,
They
man,
this
20
10-year
years.
stuff, I don't know what they talk about. Even though I'm still looking
look the
fabulous.
same. I was gonna say, I still
We
look the
still
same.
all
Looking
look the
fabulous.
same.
After all those years, and
Yep.
we would hang out together, and over the years, we have kept up with one another. We've kept up with our progress in life in general, in education, in business, in personal life. We've just kept up with one another, and so it's good to see you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
super
appreciate
excited
you.
that she's here.
Appreciate you.
Because I've been talking to Christine. I'm like, we need to get Xeturah. When can we get her? And we had a perfect opportunity. So she called me up. I said, well, hey, Xeturah, by the way, you want to do a show with us?
Because with that being said, like, Xeturah contacted me about something else, and we've been trying to get her, like, thinking about wanting her on the show for over a year now, and we just hadn't made all the connections yet with it. But, I'm super happy you're here. We're here talking about higher ed, which all of us have been in. Xeturah and I have our PhDs. Carmen has her master's degree, and I think at that time, we at least didn't have no degree.
Nope.
Yeah, we didn't have no degree.
I didn't even know if I was going to get one, to be honest with you. I was just going to school.
She was just going to school. So what I remember, I'll tell you my part of the story, right? So what I remember is teaching this class. And what you have to understand is there aren't a lot of Black women faculty in higher ed that are part-time faculty members or full-time faculty members. And so I think I was one of the first people you took a class with when you started at the community college.
Yep.
And it was a pop culture class. We were teaching it in cultural studies because I teach race, class, gender, sexualities. I teach around all of those things. And it was one of my opportunities as a women's studies professor to be able, at the time, to be able to teach all kinds of things that we study in culture, right? We, in pop culture, we can study all kinds of things. And, it made a difference, I think, for all of us because there were a few of us in the class that were African American. Here in New Mexico, and I got a chance to meet Christine and Carmen and a couple other people, but it was an opportunity for us to engage in conversations about politics, about culture, about identity, about all of those things, which was different, I think, for you guys.
Yeah, it was very different, and what was very and I'm sorry to bring this up, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this.
I already know what she's gonna bring up.
What?
I remember the last classes we watched. What did we watch?
It was some presentations that were going down.
Wait, which one? Okay, hold up. I'll let you
class
finish
talking
that.
about? No, go ahead.
I'm talking about the Jesus movie.
The Temptation of Christ, the last Temptation of Christ. Is that what it's called?
You don't know. You girl, you were huffing and puffing on that one. So, what was that? What was it called?
I can't remember what it was called.
It was the one with Mel Gibson in it, wasn't it?
Oh, the Passion of Christ.
Passion of the
Christ. Okay.
I remember that, and Xeturah, she was
weeping.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that, actually.
And I think that's the first time I watched the full movie, because I don't watch. I'm too ADHD to sit down and watch all the time. But I get up a lot, let's put it like that. But that movie, I had to watch the full movie. It was a good movie, but I remember you just, boo-hooing. And what was you about to say, Kristen?
I feel like Carmen saying boo.
Is that boo-hooing?
Well,
Let me just say this. Let me just defend myself around
It's an intense movie.
It's
an intense movie, especially for someone who's a Christian. So here's the thing you should know about me. I teach gender studies, I teach race, I teach Africana studies, I teach women's studies, I teach all of that, and I'm a Christian. And it's hard for people to sit with Christianity, especially in those venues sometimes.
Yeah,
and
you're
so
right.
One of the things I learned a long time ago is that I was going to be me in all of the classes that I taught. I wasn't going to put on, there's this whole phenomenon where you can put on a mask, right? And be a different way or be we call it code switching in psychology, right?
Yeah.
And so you can be a different way and you switch codes in order to be able to fit in. Well, a long time ago, I decided I'm not doing that
And I'm glad
anymore.
you didn't.
And I cried because the Passion of the Christ was about my Savior, right? And so about what Christ went through. And I wasn't going to just sit up in this movie and not
eating
popcorn.
Like it
and
wasn't
stuff.
touching you.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one thing I respected about her. I respected you for that. Because I'm like, you were able to talk about pop culture, about all these taboo subjects taboo with air quotes, all these subjects, because it's not taboo anymore, because back in the day it was like,
It was.
but and then
20
she was
years ago it
able to
was.
still vocalize her faith and slip that in there still. And I'm not gonna lie, she did not code switch, and that's something we do need to talk about, is code switching in the workforce and in higher education,
ed.
because we all, and I know a lot of Black people have to code switch. Can you explain a little bit more in depth what code switching is?
Okay, so code switching is really about putting on, it's that whole sense of putting on airs, right? So when you're in a population that includes white people, you act more amenable and you switch codes from what you would normally be doing in an all Black environment. So when you're in an all white or a predominantly white institution, for example, of higher education, you go there and you speak proper English. You don't use slang. You be very mindful and careful about the things that you do. And then when you go back to the Black community, you're around your family, you're around your friends, then suddenly you can be down, right? You can speak with slang, you can act differently. I'll give you an example of code switching. When I would go out to eat in a professional environment, I'd never eat fried chicken or watermelon, because those were stereotypic for Black people, right? And so I wouldn't do that. But you let me get home and my
Tearing up
mama
that
was
fried
cooking,
chicken.
I'm sorry, I would go ahead and happily eat, right? And so that's an example of how we code switch. Well, all of us on some level have learned to do that, especially in higher education. Like when we go to work, when we're around, in higher ed, we do it because if you speak in slang, then you're devalued in the classroom. So you're already having to face issues because you're a certain race and gender coming to the classroom. You don't want to reinforce stereotypes, so you code switch. You never use slang. You use references and add justification for everything that you say. you hang out with certain groups of people and in certain ways, and you hide your culture in a lot of respects by code switching. So that would be my definition. That's how I explain
I think
it.
that's perfect because I think, especially within higher ed, and I've taught in higher ed. I did it when I was a doctoral student, and then I did it postdoc for a little bit, and that has always been my goal. I've told several people I intentionally try not to code switch. I dress how it is I choose to dress. And I speak how it is I choose to speak. But at the end of the day, I'm still Dr. Ross all day within this environment. Now, when I'm out of that environment, I'm just Christine. But I feel like it's one of those things when we're working with the stereotypes and having to navigate the stereotypes of Black people and other minorities, then it comes with its own stigma around that. Like, she don't know more than me because she just used this slang term. Right. How about I actually know more than you because not only do I know how to speak your English, I know how to speak my own. So I am, I'm bilingual in the English language. I'm still bilingual within my own language.
And Ebonics I did some research on Ebonics, and for some reason I think it was in your class.
It was in her class. It was
the whole thing about Ebonics, how it's like one of the unchanging,
the longest running unchanging language
in the United States, because you go back and we're talking exactly the same. That does not make us ignorant. Just because I have an accent, I'm not saying I do, but let's say that I have an accent from the South.
She do got an accent.
Not everybody hears it, and that's my problem. Let me just squeeze this back in here. Accent things. If somebody tell me that I talk white one more time, I'm gonna turn into red beaming fire and just burn this whole bitch down. I'm sorry to tell you, but I'm tired of that.
Well, here's the thing. I think one of the things that I would offer you, as someone who has spent her life hearing that, I call someone on the phone and they're like, "Oh, Xeturah, is that you? I didn't know. I thought it was a white person calling me." Well, my grandmother was particular about the manner in which we spoke. She made sure that her kids, when we were in her house, and I was raised by my grandmother, right? We were not allowed to use slang. We weren't allowed to use any of that. Even though when we left her house, we used it with our friends, etc. And so one of the things I've learned as someone who does research, like Christine is saying, as someone who has not only lived it, but has learned about it and done research as a scholar, one of the things I've learned over the years is that's just a perpetuation of racism, right? Of stereotyping, of bias.
But Black people say white people say it to me. Black people say it to me, and that infuriates me. It's like, you're devaluing my Blackness.
No.
Just because I don't sound like you.
I get that. I agree. I know how you feel. Believe me, I've felt that way too. But here's what I found. It becomes a teachable moment. It becomes an opportunity for you to teach people that the reason you're saying that is because we have learned to internalize our own sense of oppression.
Yeah, we're like a minstrel show, essentially. It's just like, you want me to act like how others think Black people act, as opposed to seeing that there is diversity within Black culture, just like within any kind of culture that we have. Right. And so I think it becomes super difficult when you end up being confronted by, well, you talk white, so are you saying that I shouldn't learn other words? You want me to limit my vocabulary? Like, what is it? Do you want me to stop learning in general? Because I still say X.
Right.
Instead of ask a lot of times, I still say ask.
Learn how to say idea. I normally say idea for everything.
Yeah.
But now I say idea. I try to differentiate the two words instead of just making it all one word. But the thing is, that does not make me any less educated.
Correct.
It does not. The smartest person I know didn't even pass middle school.
Yeah.
And she reads avidly, and her name is Kirsten Hamilton. She's an author and everything, and she is amazing. And I can say, what does this word mean? And she's going to give you the exact dictionary word, the definition. Yeah. She's that sharp.
I don't think, though, that people say that because they're encouraging you not to learn or say that Black people can't learn. I think it goes back to what you were saying. It's a litmus test.
Of my Blackness.
Of your Blackness. And here's the thing. again, that's a way in which we've learned to internalize who's valued in Black culture and who isn't.
It's essentially like the house slave. It's like
Correct.
you are lighter, so you were mated into the
Colorism,
master's
right.
house.
That's colorism.
Uh-huh.
So colorism and hueism are another example of that. So the way in which we speak is one of the litmus tests. Whether your skin is light or whether your skin is dark. So how dark is your skin? The brown bag test, right? All of that is a measure of whether or not you are a good Black person.
Your hair.
Or a bad one.
Yeah,
Good
or you
hair
got
versus
good
bad
hair.
hair.
Good hair. I'm like, what's the definition?
But,
Good
and
hair.
I like one of our who used to do our hair. Her name was oh my goodness, Milagro. She was like, good hair is healthy hair, and she was Puerto Rican. Good hair is healthy hair. So we're looking at a friend of mine that I took to her because her hair got messed up, and she was like, this is bad hair. And she's like, love you, but this is bad hair.
Right.
Your hair is broken and stuff. But within culture, good hair
Is Eurocentric
has
hair.
been, anything that was Eurocentric, what resembled white hair the most was good hair.
And it's still like that.
And it's funny that we say, oh, well, that person got curly hair. But guess what?
We
I
got
don't know
curly hair.
many Black people who don't have curly hair. Now, the tightness of your curl is going to vary, but it is curly nonetheless. So I think, when we kind of even talk about all these different pieces, and the question is, what does this look like presented in the classroom, not only as a student, but as a professor? So Xeturah, Carmen, and I have had the conversation that me and Xeturah have had the comments, and I've had a formal complaint that somebody had to call me Dr. Ross.
How you gonna complain? I ain't never heard no white teacher say that somebody did not want to call them a doctor.
Well,
That's ridiculous.
So I think, again, it goes back to this whole concept of who a professor is or who a doctor is. So if your perception of a doctor is someone who is a particular gender, a particular race, a particular age, then anything outside of what seems normative to you is going to be seen as abnormal, right? They're not going to be able. And so for me, in my case, for sure, I think that the students that had the most trouble with calling me Dr. Woodley were those students that had issues, racial biases, and stereotypes about being able to learn from a Black woman. So and they came in various races and various genders. I even have Black men that don't want to call me Dr. Woodley, right? And so I think that, again, it goes back to what we're talking about. What are those tests that people are holding us up against to say whether we can be valued and whether we're worth it or not? I earned my doctorate. I earned every stinking letter.
Listen, a good dissertation is a complete dissertation.
That's right.
So and I think with what you're even saying, I remember having a student in the very last semester I taught, and I had to call Dr. Lily. I was like, I don't even know how you do this. And I'm like, I'm putting up with this BS for $3,000.
I know.
Like, literally, I remember
Wasn't that your last semester?
Yeah, that was my very, because I'm
done.
like,
Yeah, I'm done.
your
with
girl's
this.
done.
done
I was done.
And you love teaching,
yeah,
too.
and I really love teaching, but what the Lord had taught me is like, teaching has nothing to do with the setting. I'm able
Correct.
to teach in
Wherever
different
you go.
venues and different
That's
situations. But it was a student who really was struggling in their writing. And I said, this is really difficult to read. I said, so I'm going to need you to rewrite this, but I will help you.
Right.
Next thing you know, dude ain't in my class no more.
Right.
Because I can't tell you how to write. And my whole thing is, if anybody has taught out there, the worst part about teaching is grading.
Okay, I agree. I hate grading.
That means you guys need to stop giving those long assignments. That's on y'all.
Listen, I can't.
Yes, Xeturah is
I
guilty.
can't not do it
Yeah,
because
sure.
that's how you really assess learning.
It
Because
is.
I can give you an A, B, C, D thing, but next year you ain't gonna know the A, B, C, D.
That's
like
right.
once I make you
That's
write
right.
that paper,
You gonna know that.
already know it.
Listen.
You know.
No.
You would not be in my class if it was not my job for me to teach you how to be a good student. And how you be a good student is you have long assignments in some cases. But it really is to teach you how to write, to teach you, to strengthen your ability to think critically.
And I agree with that, especially when it comes to, because when I first started college, I didn't think I was a good writer. and I'm not saying I'm the best writer now, but I still can write a hell out of an essay if I need to. Because, you know, I'm a perfectionist. I tried to be a straight A student and everything. And if I wasn't straight A, Christine's like, what grade you got? A B. Why are you tripping? I'm here stressing out because I got a B. Because I'm trying to get all straight A's.
And
what you
this
talking
girl
about?
said, I want to get my PhD. The hell you are.
Christine said, you ain't going to do that with us. She said, you ain't going to put us through that.
Exactly.
Hey, I still might get my PhD. I've been looking around.
She better do it on the side. Just let us know when graduation is. I better not be able to tell that you even doing
because I ain't gonna lie,
the girl be off the chain.
I be stressed out, man. I tell you, school kicks my butt, and I don't even know why I want to put myself to torture, but I just want to be called doctor. I'm sorry. There's no other reason. I don't need it career-wise because in the career I'm in, you don't need to have a doctorate. I want a doctorate for my personal self because I'm going to start calling myself doctor.
Listen,
I'm not going to say she, he, no, doctor.
Listen, let me just
That's
say
gonna be
this
my
about
pronouns.
being called doctor. I got called doctor once by the people in my family. When they want to introduce me to someone else and they want to impress
Don't
that
you
person,
hate that?
they'll
Dr.
say doctor.
Ross.
But other than that, don't nobody care. Nobody cares.
Well, to that point, that's exactly what my family doing. Like, one time we went to this barbecue joint. We was in Memphis, and literally getting barbecue, and my uncle Les talking about, this is Dr. Ross, for real shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, my name's Christine, just so you know, and we're just here to eat. Like everybody else.
So there are those people that, yes, absolutely. I'm Xeturah. I'll always be Xeturah. But when it comes to my students don't need a best friend. They need a teacher. They need
That's
a
true.
faculty member, and they need Dr. Woodley showing up. And so part of what I do with my students, not all of them. Like at the community college, again, doctor doesn't matter as much, but at the university it does. And if you are going to excel at the university, you have to be comfortable with people calling you doctor.
Yeah.
And your students have to get really comfortable with calling you doctor. And if they don't, that's something for them to work out. It's not something for you to worry about.
But it's not something for you to go complain to the school.
about.
Then that's ignorant.
No, that's
I'm
ignorant.
looking at the audience. That's ignorant as hell. You do not spend a formal complaint talking about you don't want to call somebody doctor when they are doctors. So I want to go ahead and this show, put a wrap to this show. We're going to come back to it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I really want to have another show as the tourist so we can kind of continue this. So, I really appreciate y'all listening to us today. Thank you for looking at Following Forward, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.